The night was colder than usual.
What are you thinking about?
Outside, the streets were quiet, blanketed in the
Just
stillness that
remembering
only comes
things.
when the city has fallen asleep. Streetlights flickered, and the sound of the wind rattled old windows of apartments stacked side by side like tired dominoes. But in one small, dimly lit diner at the corner of Fifth Avenue, a story was about to unfold. A story that no one in that town would ever forget. It began when a young woman named Emma walked into the diner, her shoes soaked from the rain, her thin jacket no match for the winter's cruel bite. She moved quietly, almost like a shadow, her face pale and tired, her eyes sunken yet strangely alive, eyes that carried stories no one had cared to hear. She sat in the farthest booth, her body trembling as though each breath was a battle. The waitress approached with a soft smile and asked if she wanted coffee, but Emma shook her head. She whispered something almost too quietly to hear. I don't have any money. The waitress, pity in her eyes, left her alone. And that was when Daniel noticed her. Daniel wasn't a man of wealth, not a man of great standing. He was just an ordinary mechanic who had worked himself to the bone that day. His hands were rough, his clothes smelled faintly of grease, and exhaustion weighed heavily on him. But Daniel had something more valuable than money. He had a heart that still knew how to see people. And that night, when his tired eyes caught Emma whispering to herself, he felt something stir deep inside him. When Emma finally rose from her seat, clutching her torn bag close to her chest, Daniel heard her soft whisper to the waitress. Her voice broke as she said, "I have nowhere to sleep tonight." It wasn't meant for anyone else, it was a confession, a cry no one was supposed to hear. But Daniel heard it, and in that moment, he made a choice. As Emma stepped out into the freezing night, Daniel followed. "Wait," he called gently. She froze, fear flashing in her eyes. Life had taught her that when strangers called after you at night, danger usually followed. But Daniel's voice was different. Gentle, steady, almost protective. "You don't have to explain," Daniel said, softly. I have a couch, it's not much, but it's warm." Emma shook her head quickly. "No, I can't. I don't know you." Daniel nodded in understanding. "You're right, you don't. But it's too cold to be out here tonight. I won't take your bed, I'll sleep on the floor. You can have mine." Her lips trembled. She looked at him, searching his face for deception, for mockery, for the cruelty she had grown used to. But she found none. All she saw was a man who truly meant what he said. Daniel led Emma to his tiny apartment. It wasn't much, a single bedroom, a cracked window he had taped over, a couch that sagged in the middle, and walls that whispered of hard years lived quietly. He gave her a blanket, offered her his bed, and laid down on the floor. "Why would you do this for me?" Emma whispered in the dark. Daniel turned his head toward her shadowed figure. "Because once someone did the same for me, and it saved me." Emma didn't answer, but for the first time in months she felt safe enough to close her eyes. The following days were not easy. Emma remained guarded. She would wake up early, help tidy the small apartment, and disappear during the day to search for work, only to return defeated. Daniel never pushed her for answers, but little by little, cracks in her silence began to reveal her story. She had once dreamed of becoming a teacher, but life had not been kind. Her parents had passed when she was young. She had been raised in foster care, shuffled from house to house, never truly belonging. When she turned 18, she had nothing. No money, no guidance, no safety net. She had trusted a man who promised her love, but he had left her with nothing but debt and heartbreak. Homelessness had followed, and nights had been spent in bus stations, under bridges, and in shelters where cruelty often outweighed kindness. Daniel listened without judgment. He never interrupted, never pitied. He simply listened. And in those quiet conversations, Emma began to feel something she thought she had lost forever: dignity. Weeks passed. Daniel worked long hours at the garage, sometimes skipping meals so he could buy Emma groceries. She tried finding work, but each time she faced rejection. Employers turned her away for her worn clothes, her lack of references, her tired eyes that betrayed her struggles. One night, Daniel came home to find Emma crying at the kitchen table. A rejection letter lay on the counter. She looked up at him and whispered, "Maybe I really am worthless." Daniel knelt beside her, his rough hands gently resting on hers. "Emma, listen to me. You are not worthless. You're strong. Do you know how much strength it takes just to survive everything you've survived? That is worth more than anything money can buy." Her tears fell freely. No one had ever spoken to her like that. One afternoon, Daniel collapsed at work. He had been overworking himself, skipping meals, carrying more than his share just to keep up with bills. Emma rushed to the hospital where he was taken. For the first time, she saw the man who had carried her pain also had his own burdens. She sat by his side and whispered, "You gave me your bed when I had nowhere to sleep. Now it's my turn. I'll take care of you." From that day forward, their bond deepened. Emma found small jobs, cleaning, babysitting, helping at a local library. Each dollar she earned, she set aside to ease Daniel's burden. The whisper that changed everything. Months later, one evening after Daniel had returned from work, Emma set dinner on the table. It wasn't much, just soup and bread. But it was warm, made with love. As they ate quietly, Emma looked up and whispered words that mirrored the night they first met. "Daniel, I don't ever want to leave, not because I have nowhere else to go, but because here, with you, feels like home." Daniel's eyes filled with tears. He remembered the broken young woman who once whispered she had no place to sleep. Now she whispered something entirely different, something filled with hope. The story spread in their town not because they told it, but because kindness has a way of leaving traces. The mechanic who gave his bed to a homeless girl, and the girl who gave him back his strength. It was a story that inspired others to see people differently. And as Emma built her life again, brick by brick, she carried with her the memory of that night she whispered her despair, only to find a man, willing to sleep on the floor so she could rest. Because sometimes the smallest acts of compassion change lives forever.